We're at the IAS meeting in Durban, South Africa. We're here with Seema Kumar, who is in doing the work with Johnson & Johnson at the conference here. And I wanted you to give us a sense of what Johnson & Johnson is doing here.
That's a great question, thank you. So Johnson & Johnson, this is a very special meeting for Johnson & Johnson. We've had a long tradition and a legacy in the work that we've done in HIV, in treatments, in prevention, and now we're working on an HIV vaccine. And so what was really special for us is to be present here, representing all of the different parts of the work that we do across Johnson & Johnson, from our pharmaceuticals group to our contributions group, and people who are doing work in R&D, and people here on the ground doing on-the-ground operations and implementations. So for us to all work together to showcase the different aspects of what we do across J&J has been a really nice presence here at IAS.
Now, the work you've been doing is not only in vaccines. Can you give because I mean it's interesting for people to hear all the work you're doing.
Yes, so Johnson & Johnson has had a very long tradition and work in the HIV arena, dating back to when we acquired Tibotec and Verco, which was co-founded, as you know, by Dr. Paul Stoffels, our Chief Scientific Officer now of Johnson & Johnson. And so from then on, J&J has made a major commitment to the arena of HIV and AIDS. And so we've had phenomenal new therapies come out of the work of that began at Tibotec, three fabulous drugs. But we also have had a lot of work that's ongoing in education, in prevention of mother-to-child transmission, in training, in infrastructure and healthcare system strengthening. Also in research and development in terms of work with our partners mostly on a vaginal ring that Zita Rosenberg from the IPM spoke about. We've also had work on a long-acting formulation of HIV. We're working on an HIV vaccine as well. So we've got a whole host of things that we're doing in this arena.
But even Ebola.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So of course I focused on HIV because we are at the IAS, but the Ebola story was just such a phenomenal story because
it's even though AIDS is so scary, Ebola is even more scary.
Yes,
because it happens so quickly. It's kind of mysterious. I think things are mysterious.
Yes,
tend to lead people to be more fearful of it.
Absolutely, and you know, Ebola it's really highly infectious disease, and also how Ebola affects you is really scary, and you know, very, very frightening for most people. And I think when we learned that there was a World Health Organization had called for an emergency and for looking to industry to really pitch in, what we did was we realized that we have a vaccine that we had been working on for a long time. We decided to invest $200 million immediately to accelerate the vaccine that was in development, and really in record time we ended up from having a vaccine in a lab all the way to now having 2 million doses ready to roll in a very short time for emergency use should it be needed. Now, of course, you know, since then the Ebola epidemic has subsided, and thank God we didn't need to use it. However, I think it taught us a lot of lessons in preparedness, in emergency preparedness, in how what was always thought of Ebola as a infectious disease that affects remote parts of Africa suddenly came to the world's consciousness because it started to affect people beyond those remote regions, and it was frightening.
Now we have Zika virus, which is another scary.
And now we have Zika, which is another scary disease. And so I think what it teaches us is that we can't be complacent, and that emerging threats are all around us. We had SARS, we had MERS, we had the H1N1 flu, we had Ebola. We've had many other infectious diseases that have come out of the blue, and most recently, of course, Zika. And so I think there is the global community is having a lot of dialogue on how do we prepare ourselves better for these global threats.
And depending on how they're transmitted, they can be all over the world in a matter of days.
Absolutely. Today we live in a global world, interconnected world, and it's a wonderful world we live in terms of the interconnectedness and the freedom of travel between lots of different places. We're all very mobile and global citizens. But on the other hand, what it also means is that infectious diseases are no longer contained in only parts of the world. It has become global infectious diseases, global threats, and so we have to be prepared for it much more in advance and be much more vigilant. I also think that Ebola taught us many lessons, including why investing in research and development and innovation is important, because it was only because the NIH and others had invested early on in an Ebola vaccine long ago, soon after the 9/11 attacks and fear of bioterrorism. We were able to actually accelerate it. Now with Zika, we're starting from scratch, and so you can see the difference. And I think investing in basic science is an important part of making sure that we're always vigilant and looking to see where are these threats coming from, these global threats going to be coming from.
It's good that we have the CDC to kind of
monitor that,
yes, and to
yes,
see there's something happening here. And
yes, absolutely.
much as the way they did with AIDS. When I was
Yeah.
back there with Jim Curran at the CDC in Atlanta.
Absolutely, and when HIV is an example of again trailblazing in terms of the scientific community coming together, the regulatory, the scientific community, the advocacy groups, and then the patients, academia, industry, everybody coming together to really, in 30 years, take HIV from when we didn't even barely knew what caused it to today. I think we have people who are on treatments who can live near to normal lives. Of course, are we satisfied? No, because we're not satisfied. We want to do better. There are some holy grails, including an HIV vaccine, a cure. But in the meantime, we also need other tools like prevention tools, like the vaginal ring, like long-acting formulations, simplified regimens for people, simplification of strategies here in Africa, for example. So we need to continue working on all of those and continuing to innovate. But of course, the goal, as you know, is ending HIV and to create an HIV-free world. And that's why at Johnson & Johnson, our theme this year is uniting, of course, within ourselves, but with all of our partners to work towards an HIV-free world. And that is the dream.
Working on the unmet need. And the biggest challenge, I guess, is to figure out what that is, and then have your 10 and 20-year business plan that changes every month.
But we have to be in it for the long haul. You heard Paul Stoffels talk about how these kinds of innovations, they take sometimes 5, 10, 15 years to bring forward. And so you have to invest today knowing that that is going to pay off in returns, and hopefully in our own lifetimes, but if not, at least for the next generations to come, we want to leave a better, healthier world for people.
I want us to find a cure while Paul is alive.
Yes,
Listen,
let's find a cure when
it.
Paul is alive. He deserves it. He deserves it. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for meeting with me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.